even if it's the success of someone else. Another example is just like mothers and kids. Like so many mothers and parents in general put their dreams into their kids, and they work their entire lives for their success. So yeah, I don't think it should be for yourself necessarily.
Welcome to another episode of Puzzle, here with me, Salvi.
Trisha?
And today, the topic of the day is going to be success. The first topic of today is going to be, my first question is going to be, is successful worth, success,
You just spit it out.
is success a goal worth having? How important is success? And what role does it play in our lives?
Right. I think it's pretty important to define success for ourselves just so we know exactly what we're talking about. So, at least for me, I would say success is pretty synonymous with happiness. Like if a person is happy with relation to their goals and achieving them, then they're successful. It's like a subjective thing. And therefore, of course, it's important because for me, it's also synonymous to well-being. If a person is successful by their own definitions, then they're in a good mental state, they're happy, they're proud of themselves, they're motivated to do things with themselves. It's a better place to be in than not being successful. And I think to the extent where it is important because so much of one's I feel like I'm going to repeat myself. So
I agree with you. I think success is like really hard to define because it's a very individual thing, but actually it might not be individual, but we'll come back to that later. But success is like a combination of a lot of things, like you said, happiness, or it can be like impact on the greater world, or longevity, or if it's not like an individual thing, it can be like, what is the success of a community or the success of a country? Like, that can mean survival also for some species. Like that's what success can mean. So yeah, it's really hard to define it. And I guess just during this conversation, we have to be aware that like the success that we're talking about is very specific to us as individuals.
Well, yeah, me for one part thinks it's not possible to define success because there are just too many ways to measure it. You mentioned happiness, but you could mention fame, money, so many different driving factors that people work for. Right? And so my question comes more from, whatever, because I feel like there is a global understanding of success. And it's like an objective understanding of what the word success means. So just on the importance of it, like I, for example, believe that success, define it however you will, is important because I think it gives a person purpose. I feel like a person, however you define it, like money, fame, or some are going to be harder for you to deal with than others. Because, for example, if you're striving for happiness and you are following a path of happiness, it may be a more fulfilling way. So there are different ways in which that path can be made. However, I think it's important, no matter what path you take, for one to have a path. Because I feel like oftentimes when one is not having a path, one is completely lost. And being lost is a very bad thing because then you don't have any appreciation for the life that you're living.
Wow.
Right.
So that's for me why success is so important.
That's very interesting because I would be curious to know what you think about boredom. So I was having a conversation with friends because we've all just finished finals at this point, and we kind of don't, there's a feeling of not really knowing what to do with yourself because you have such a well-defined purpose for the last week where you're cramming for all these exams, and now we're kind of empty-handed. And a friend of mine was saying he's just so bored, he doesn't know what to do himself, and I was saying that I think we all need boredom here, especially in the sense that we're all very overstimulated or very overwhelmed, burnt out, etc. So do you think that's healthy? Do you think if one is lost and bored for however long, I mean obviously if they're bored for very long periods of time, that can lead to maybe destructive behavior, but even then that could lead to a healthy outcome because they've exhausted that.
Exactly. I think there is something very important to say about boredom. I think it's related to more of having a time that is for yourself. Because one thing that is very important to everyone is having time to think. And thinking is very important because when you're thinking, it allows for you to redefine what success for you means. And so it allows you to redefine your purpose. And this is important because redefining your purpose can change your perspective on life. It allows you to grow as a person. And I think it's very healthy for you. I think it's very healthy, and I think it's also a reason why we have vacations, for example. Just to take a brain and dedicate yourself to just think. And I think that's, important. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I feel like, these are breaks that you have, but it's not something that, while you're working, to go through a period of being lost and you're working on something that requires a lot of attention, that is a point in time where you're going to have a really bad time because you're going to be struggling between having something super important that needs your attention and you're not being able to fulfill it. That's not a perfect time for a break. So I feel like in that case, maybe like if you're taking courses, for example, in college, maybe it's better to like try to focus on the course as much as you can and then like finalize it and then dedicate yourself to truly reconsidering everything that you've been doing. But definitely important, like it's definitely important to have those.
So speaking of that, I have a question, which is how often do you guys like reevaluate what success means to you? And how often do you think that the general public does that?
Yeah, I think I do it a lot. Way too much, in fact, sometimes it leads to lack of action. Because I think when you're thinking so hard about what you want to do with yourself, with your time, you realize the sensitivity of it all. You end up not really doing anything because you're just so overwhelmed with. Yeah, I think it's difficult to act if you're thinking so much because sure you'll arrive at one conclusion one day, but then after more thinking you'll arrive at another thing, and then you'll stop wanting to do things because you want to conserve energy, kind of. I don't know, like at least this semester I've been.
Yeah, continue.
Still recording. This semester I've done a lot of thinking and I've almost been taken away from my academics to some degree as a result. And it's interesting because I have one friend I really want to talk about actually. So yeah, he's very, very stressed in the academics. Like he's really working hard all the time. Not particularly happy, but achieving really, really phenomenal grades. Like he's killing every class when the averages are like far below. He'll always get in the 90s and it's absurd. And I'm very proud of him to some degree. But at the same time, I'm worried for him, right? And we have conversations about his stress and his happiness and stuff like that quite a bit. And it's funny as well because he said to me that earlier this semester there was a point in time where I was putting in like effort into my work, but not that much. Not as much as I normally do, I suppose, is a better way to put it. And he said that he had never seen me so happy because I was really questioning things from a philosophical standpoint, like success, whatever, indulging in friendships and romance, whatever it may be, like just doing other things, doing more human things. And he said that in a way of like admiration for me having the kind of strength to not like rise above the academics, but almost like see the game and the system that we're kind of in and distance yourself for your own personal well-being. So I wonder how he would define. I can't remember exactly what I was trying to respond to.
It was just like, how often do you reevaluate your
So I think, I do it much more. Well, his strategy is very interesting. So his thing is he's shooting for a really high GPA and to nail all his classes because he hopes to work for maybe like Google or something, learn the tricks of the trade from them, and then hopefully start out with friends and make like a killer idea. So he's kind of, that's his current thing, from what I understand.
I think, okay, going back to like our first thing and also segueing off yours, like, is success important? You mentioned that there's like a society's objective like frame of success, right? Which is what, like money, I don't know, like good living conditions, maybe fame, whatever. And I think you have to differentiate between that conception of success and your own conception of success, which takes a lot of reevaluating and a lot of questioning yourself. And I think at Columbia it's really hard to do that. Like your friend that you mentioned is probably working so hard and getting these great grades and he doesn't have time to do that. And I really think the system is designed to make us like not question what we think success means. Because if we question what it means and we become more human and we spend time like doing things that we love and that aren't academic, and we don't like shut ourselves in our room all day, we're not going to rebel and we're not going to protest the system. And that's easy for them because then they get to keep power. It sounds very like conspiracy theory like, but like the society defining success is a way to suppress us.
I think, yeah, I think there is a, I think when you are, I think what one has to differentiate is not necessarily the important, I mean, there's clearly a distinction between objective success, as you said, and personal success. I agree. I think that's
I
not
think
the...
we should call it objective. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, objective. No, yeah, it's fine. I think for me, the most important distinction is not that. For me, the most important distinction is whose success you are working for. And it's more, you know, because you could be working for a sort of success that is societal, right? But it could also be your own.
Right.
And that's fine. It's fine as long as this success you're working for is not a success that that is for someone else. Because then you're literally working for someone else, you're not working for yourself. And I think that is something that will drive you miserably because you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for someone else, and it doesn't fulfill you in any meaningful way, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go for it.
I think that's a very like Western way of seeing the world, because in a lot of other like non-Western communities, the value of the community is placed so much higher than the value of the individual. So let's say I was like...
Interesting. I mean,
like,
introduce me to it.
Yeah, I mean, a common thing is like, yeah, obviously there's a lot of messed up aspects about the community-based thinking. But like, let's say as if I marry someone, right, in India, I would like live in his family. And I would basically spend my life taking care of his family.
Yeah.
And that's not for me. That's not even for my family, right? That's someone that I'm not related to by blood. But it's just a duty. It's just something you do. And like, yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, obviously there's questions about being forced into it and stuff, but even if it's the success of someone else. Another example is just like mothers and kids. Like, so many mothers and parents in general put their dreams into their kids, and they work their entire lives for their success. So yeah, I don't think it should be for yourself necessarily.
No, true. I what I maybe should clarify is I think, you know, what, like, I don't want to say like success is just for yourself. Like, you could also like work for someone else to achieve an objective success, for example, or societal success, however you want to call it. But I think that makes it your success too, right? If you can like help them do something better, you are essentially like reaching the success in the way that you defined it for yourself, right? Even though you're working for someone else. So it's still your own success, you know what I mean? As a mother.
This kind of reminds me of the idea. So there's this idea that there is no such thing as, I can't remember the exact word, not empathy, sacrifice or something.
Altruism.
Like that. Yes, thank you very much. There's no such thing as altruism, because anything you ever do which is altruistic is really something that you're doing because you want to do. I want to help this homeless person. I want to help this person understand this homework better. I want to whatever. The community, give back to the community in some way. So it's all selfish. So that's something interesting, because that almost combines what you're saying.
Yeah, I know. I like refused to believe that for so long, but now I really believe it.
Yeah,
There's nothing you can
actually
do out of pure like interest for others. It's just the way our
So you
brains
wouldn't
are
do it?
wired. Yeah.
Just that simply.
Yeah.
That gives me a lot to think about. But I cannot express now because I have to think about it. Yeah, but interesting thoughts.
Well,
should I read this next question? We can come back. Yeah, so my next question, sorry, I'm going to look it up, is who do we think is successful? Who can we think of that is successful? And why do we think this person is successful?
okay, one of my things goes off of altruism. So like Gandhi is one of my role models.
You mentioned him in like
Every
three,
podcast.
three episodes. Yeah.
Go. I mean,
It's lovely, it's lovely,
He's
yeah.
a pretty good role model.
Yeah.
You
He's
can't
a good-
really argue.
Yeah.
No, except the thing is you can.
You can.
Because,
Oh, yeah, I
okay,
don't know shit. Anyway, okay. I hope you cut that out. That sounds secret. Anyway, okay, yes. So tell me about Gandhi for
Right.
the 20th time.
so people see Gandhi as super successful, right? Like his legacy is inspiring movements all over the world and everyone learns about him. And I always had this very like, I worshipped Gandhi. Like he was
Wow.
I thought he was so successful and like
Yeah.
one of the most successful people I've ever seen. But then I met a bunch of people this year who were like, Gandhi is a failure because he slept with little girls. And then I was like, oh no. like,
Ooh,
shoot.
interesting thought. Interesting.
my idea of a successful person
Omar,
has
by the
been-
way, is googling Gandhi. Just.
I just
clarify.
want to learn a bit more about him.
Yeah.
But learn
my-
through Trisha. Learn through Trisha.
Okay.
No, it's okay.
No, it's good. Like.
All right. Well, my idea of like successful Gandhi was questioned, and so the idea here is that he did things that are immensely successful, like objectively or societally successful, because his legacy will last forever. But he also did something that was like the opposite of success, like a really miserable failure, according to what we did. So does that make him still successful? Like, should we still see him as successful?
Well, I think like I don't know if that like if him doing something that is not nice. I'm not quite familiar with the history of Gandhi.
That's
At least not as
fine.
familiar as you are. But I think it doesn't make you necessarily less successful to have done something. Like the success you achieved for doing something is a success you achieved. If it gets intermixed with something else, that I think just makes you reevaluate the person's morality, maybe, but not necessarily his success.
Okay, well, I
because he
understand.
reached a point, right? He reached an objective point where people can just acknowledge that, he is just that figure,
Okay, what about the case of people's parents paying
Yeah.
like sums to
Yeah.
get them into universities? Like obviously the university isn't going to admit someone who's like terribly unqualified, right?
Right.
But it does kind of take away from the success, doesn't it? If you didn't get in organically or whatever, or just
Yeah,
even
I'd say
other
you're not
examples, like if
Oh, I
you
see
make
what you
like
mean. I see what you mean.
let's say you have two people and one's a really hard, honest worker and he's always working 12 hours a day, every day for his family or whatever it is, doing some very like honest job. And then you have someone who wins the lottery or is a gambler or something and just there's a bit of fluke involved or whatever it is and it's not quite all their merit that got them the same monetary
Yeah.
success.
Right.
So
Does it
takes
really make
away-
a difference? Because in my opinion, it almost doesn't, because if success is just defined as like
Yeah.
the outcome is that you have X amount of money, then they're both equally successful.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
That
the
makes
thing
me
is, the
think
thing,
success is
Yeah.
stupid.
right,
I think no.
think it.
Yeah. I think success. The thing with success is that success is not something that defines a whole person. It defines a certain aspect in the life of the person. For example, you can be successful at your job, but maybe you're not successful in your happiness. There are many people who would describe themselves in Wall Street, and there are like articles written about this of how successful they are. They make a salary of over $1 million, and in those terms they are successful in a monetary sense. But then in their personal lives, horrible. They're like working all these hours and they're like miserable. They're like grumpy ogres, and that makes them not successful in life. So I think, for example, in the example for Gandhi as well, you could define his success in his campaigning, right, and like his fighting for the rights and or other people. As I said, I'm not too familiar with his history. And then you obviously have this other aspect of him, right? Which is another aspect of his person. But it doesn't, like as I said, I don't think it gets included in this other success that he had. It's just like another aspect that you need to consider when evaluating Gandhi as a person, right? Yeah. Do you have an example of someone who you want to talk to? Because for me, success, another like someone who I consider someone successful is, for example, I don't know, just it's merely like societal success, right? But in science, which is the field that I'm working in, someone who discovers something that helps the entire world and also fulfills the person internally. There, for example, and just an example from Columbia University, since we're studying here, Joachim Frank won the Nobel Prize in chemistry from Columbia, dedicates his life to chemistry. I don't know much about the life of Joachim, but from the outside and without knowing much about him, I can imagine him to be a successful person in his career because he won a Nobel Prize, but for electron microscopy, I think. But also probably this brought to him a lot of fulfillment and to society in general so much help. And so I feel like I consider that a lot of success.
Yeah.
And as a person I look up to because of the
Yeah.
things he achieved.
I think that's really interesting because a lot of times we think of it as a trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say if I was to be really happy, I just imagine myself like living in a little cabin in the mountains. But
Isolated.
yeah, and just like reading books and writing, I would be so happy. But like with the things that I'm interested in and the things that I'm studying, I feel like it's my duty and something that I'm really passionate about to change the world and make long-lasting effect. So that's why I'm not doing that. But like, maybe we should change our definition of success and see those people who are living in little shacks in the mountain as successful. Because also like changing the world is something that, like with the lottery, it has a lot of luck. You have to be born with a lot of talent and just like have access to really good resources.
Yeah, that's very much so like Outliers logic
Yeah.
in the sense that it's very luck based. With Bill Gates, right? That's what they talk about.
Maybe. I
Which
forget.
computer scientist? Either way, I think to answer your question earlier about who I think is successful, I think that isn't actually that profound of a question because it just means who matches my definition of success.
I think it's a
Yeah.
question that is interesting because it makes you evaluate
Right,
someone
right. I see.
and it's try to think, like, oh, this is, yeah, exactly, that's what you said, like how you define success for yourself,
Right.
and to see exactly what you find so valuable about it. That's exactly what the question is going for,
Right.
more than just seeing someone who you objectively,
Yeah.
But we can move on to our next question. We're anyways like
I want to
short in
I'm
town.
just trying to think.
So I'm just going to ask this question now because maybe it's related to what you want to talk about
Okay.
later. What is being successful in college? Because,
Okay, well,
We're
I
in
think
college.
very easily, like killing all your classes, not only learning all the material, but doing well in the exams too, and actually like getting the grades to reflect the understanding. Because I think those are actually two very different skills. You can retain all the information for a class and do terribly in the exams because you just haven't done all the practice exams and learned the exam technique, or you had a bad day or whatever it is. I also think it's really like.
Sorry.
That song actually, that's funny. I have a story with that, but whatever. I also think being successful in college is, no, honestly, I actually shouldn't have started with that. Being successful in college is balancing all of the like sub-definitions of successful. So successful academically, successful socially, and what I mean by that is having lots of fulfilling friendships, which there is real love between you and your friends,
Yeah.
I think also working in like romantic success. And that doesn't have to literally mean like you never get rejected. But what I mean by that is like you're successfully addressing your wants and needs to be romantic and physical while balancing all the other things and familial success, maintaining
So
that
balance,
relationship.
essentially.
Just balance. But with all of those things.
Okay.
It's just about self-awareness. You know what I think it is actually? Here's maybe a way to define it. I think success, maybe college is like the medium we can use, but it's just about being so self-aware, so that you know exactly how to please yourself in all of your wants and needs. So for instance, if a person doesn't really have the wants to be very social, then like that wouldn't really be successful for them if they were to make a bunch of really great friends who
Right,
loved them,
of
but they didn't
course.
really love that much, or there was something a bit off from their end. That's going back to this idea of subjectivity. But I think it stems from self-awareness, and that's the thing I didn't mention before.
Right.
Do you have?
No.
Oh, I have, for me, success. Okay, so my slope at Columbia is very interesting because I experienced great success academically, especially my first semester.
Oh.
No, wait.
Okay.
Wait, no, wait. But that didn't make me successful in my terms. So for me, academic success proved to be not the success that I kind of want. It's not the only success that I want. Obviously, it's well. Anytime you do well in something, it's something that helps you. But it proved to me that it was not the only thing. And for me, I had afterwards, after my freshman year, my hardest semester was sophomore year. Oh my gosh. And it was hard for me, super hard because I was lost. I didn't have a purpose. I had no idea why I was studying what I was studying. I felt like I learned nothing. I felt like there was no point in pursuing a GPA as I was my freshman year. I just was lost, and I didn't know what to dedicate my life to, and I started questioning things if I wasn't maybe meant for me to be an actor, for example. Because I used to act in high school, I had some talent in acting, and I was, who's telling me not to do the thing? And this is the important thing. I felt like at that moment, more than at any time in my life, that no one fights for your happiness as much as you do and it's a path of it's like a constant redefinition of this purpose until you find something that you can, for the moment, feel fulfilled by. And so for me, the way I define success now, because now I'm very happy. Academically, my success dropped a little bit. I'm still very pretty successful, I think, but it's dropped a little bit compared to my freshman year. And I feel more successful because I found what it is that I want to do later in life, and this helps me balance everything else out. Because once I found my purpose in college and what I want to study, it just makes me happy and strengthens everything for me. It motivates me to get good grades, motivates me to be fascinated by the things that I'm learning. It helps me to get friends because now I'm happy about what I'm doing, and so just my mood just generally lightens up, and so it makes everything easier for me. And maybe I'm just a very work-oriented person, and my work essentially defines a lot of my other things, just because so much for me depends on this work. And so for me, what makes my college experience successful is finding that purpose and pursuing it full time. Because once I do that, everything else, I start to love myself again. I start to engage with people again. Yeah. And I think also in terms of romance, for example, it also increases romantic success just because when you love yourself, you're giving another person to love you too. A reason, right? A reason to love you too.
I think so.
I mean, I just mentioned the love part because for me, it's from a personal point of view, for me, if I love myself, I feel very confident, feel happy, and I feel like it also makes other people attracted to you more because just you have this confidence in you, and you're I'm doing it, I'm pursuing this, and that I feel like that attracts someone else more.
People respect and like a person who's seems to have some sort of direction.
Yeah.
That's a trait we all like, and I think as well it's infectious if you're with people who are very motivated and planning their thing. You want to join them in their work.
Yeah, totally.
People with any characteristic, even really happy people. I always feel so happy to be around happy people.
Unless it's finals week. Push them away.
Yeah. I don't want any happiness.
Stay in your little man cave.
Do you have time for anything else?
I mean,
actually, this feels like a very natural.
This feels like a very natural point to stop this.
Yeah.
Feel free to comment as always. We love you watching, and so I hope you stay tuned and watch all our other episodes. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, ring-a-ling-a-ding, and love and hugs to you. Bye.
Bye.
Self-love.